give you some news about the stolen wallet with the Cal Fire firefighter, and then I'm going to call Chief Deputy Chris Clark up here, who's going to announce some additional information regarding another matter. So, as you can recall, several days ago, we reported that somebody had taken a wallet from the car belonging to a Cal Fire firefighter and then charged some credit card and bank charges on that card. And that case really resonated with me, because here we had somebody who came from completely out of the area, left their family, left their normal life to come here to Santa Cruz County to help our community get through the most catastrophic fire that we've seen in our history, and then somebody has the audacity to steal from this man. And so I was upset about it, in that that's not who we are here in Santa Cruz County, and that's not a good representation of our community, to take advantage of somebody who's come here to help us. And so I assigned one of our investigation units to the case, and our investigation sergeant, Dan Robbins, led this team. They worked this case. They received some good information from a citizen that led to the identification of Brian Johnson, who you see here in this photograph, who's a Live Oak resident, which is an area between the city of Capitola and the city of Santa Cruz. The investigations team went to his house and conducted a probation search, because this man is on formal probation. And they located the clothing that was depicted in the video and the photographs that we posted on our Facebook. And they also recovered merchandise that had recently been purchased. Our investigators sat down with Mr. Johnson and talked to him. And clearly he did not realize, when he used this firefighter's credit card, what he was getting himself into. And he admitted that he had used the credit cards and made the charges. He also sat down and wrote a letter of apology to the fireman. And he was then arrested for multiple felony charges, including forgery, grand theft, credit card theft, possession of stolen property, and a probation violation. And for all you folks out there that are writing on the side of the Facebook saying catch and release, they're going to let him out, we're not going to let him out. He's in on a probation violation. He's going to stay there, and I'm sure the court is going to hold him. And I've been in communication with the district attorney's office, and I spoke with Jeff Roselle last night and this morning about the case. And DA Roselle is committed to filing the appropriate felony charges in this case. And this gentleman will be arraigned, I believe, on either Friday afternoon or Monday. I want to touch on a couple things. I know that the Cal Fire executives, as well as myself, have received a lot of phone calls and a lot of emails, not just from our community members, but from people across the country. I received an email from a man in New York State, and there's been a lot of people who have tried to reach out to this firefighter to help him. We've had people offer to pay the whole bill. We've had offers of donations. And so we've been in communication with the firefighter. Fortunately, his bank and his credit card company reversed all charges. And so the victim, the firefighter in this case, told us that, hey, I've been made whole, everything's been reversed. And so he wanted to extend his appreciation for all the support and the offers, but he said he's good now, and all he wants to do is get up on that fire line and do his job. I also want to commend our investigations team. They were given this case about 3 days ago, maybe 2.5 days ago, and to turn around this case from a person wearing a mask in a store to an arrest and a confession within 48 hours is really good police work. And so our team did an outstanding job. They were motivated. They felt the urgency on this. They felt the need to help this firefighter, and they went out and did their jobs, and they did it well. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
You mentioned that he was on probation. What was he on probation for?
I'm not sure. He's on probation out of another county, but I I haven't had a chance to look at that information yet.
And you said that was it a witness who called in a tip that then led the investigators to this man's house?
It was a community member who gave us some information. Felix?
Sheriff, what was the nature of that call? Did that caller say, I know somebody who wears a similar mask like that? I mean, because, that mask was so distinctive that, what was the nature of that call? I'm just trying to maybe get some...
Yeah, so the question is regarding what was the nature of the call. Was it about a description of the clothing, or was it something else? And based on what Sergeant Robbins from our investigations team told me, it was kind of a combination of both. It was both the clothing, and then the person who called this in may have known Mr. Johnson. Any other questions?
Are there any enhancements to the charges based on the fact that this is emergency personnel working a fire?
I wish there was, but I don't believe there is. We've been talking with the district attorney about that, and to the best that we can research on this, there doesn't appear to be. But he's facing some pretty serious felony charges right now, and the question was, is there any enhancements on the charges for him doing this crime in an evacuation zone or a fire zone? Any other questions?
It was 4 felony charges, including probation violation?
Yeah, so the question is, what were the charges? So grand theft, credit card theft exceeding a certain amount, so that's a felony, possession of stolen property felony, forgery felony, and then the probation violation felony.
Can you say what he spent the money on?
I would tell you, but I don't have that information. I know we recovered quite a bit of items at the house, but this happened late last night, so I haven't seen the report yet or been briefed fully on it.
So he was arrested late last night?
Yes.
Sheriff,
Felix?
regarding the firefighter, is this a firefighter who came from within state, or he came clear across country to help us?
The question is where did this firefighter come from? I'm assuming he came from California because he is a CAL FIRE employee, but I just don't know what region he came from. But he is California.
And these were sheriff's deputies with the Santa Cruz Sheriff's Office?
The question is who made the arrest on this, and these are detectives assigned to my investigations unit at the Sheriff's Office. Any other comments, questions?
Anybody else connected to him?
Yeah, this group, our investigations team is following up right now on some more information that they have on another person that may be involved as well. And so they are going to be in contact with this person today, which may lead to a second arrest. They just have to talk to this young man and figure out what his involvement is. But there is some follow-up to do on this case, and that includes getting some video that we need out of a couple stores, and then also talking to this young man that may be involved.
That person is local too?
The question is that person local too, and the answer is yes, he is.
Sheriff, any idea that this Brian Johnson or the other person may be connected to maybe other cases of looting inside the Santa Cruz Mountains?
So the question is Brian Johnson or this other man involved in any other cases of looting? And as far as we know, no. We don't have any evidence of that. We are looking at these two people strictly for this theft and then all the crimes that occurred after the theft of the wallet. Any other questions? Yes?
Sir, I'm not media, but I lost the property, and it relates to this. I'm curious about accessing, how we do that properly, and what we should be looking for moving forward.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. We're not here today in this press conference to talk about that. I've got Chief Deputy Clark, who's going to come up here and talk about some of that. But the question is, a gentleman has here who's not media, is that when are we going to start opening some things up? And so, I'm as anxious as anybody. I've been evacuated. The district attorney's been evacuated. 74 of my staff members have been evacuated. I have a number of staff members whose homes are in the actual fire area. And so we've all been impacted heavily by this, so I can empathize with you, sir. And I totally understand what you're feeling, but I think we're going to see some real progress in the coming days, and Chief Deputy Quark's going to talk about that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
It was just credit cards that he used, or were there debit cards as well?
It's my understanding that it was credit cards that were used. And what Johnson did was he went out and bought a bunch of gift cards with that so that you could use them anywhere.
Do you have a dollar amount?
I don't have a total dollar amount. I know that one purchase that was made was $1,400. The question was is what the dollar amount of the loss is. And it's my understanding there was one purchase for $1,400, but there was a number of other purchases. I just haven't seen the exact amounts on that. But really, the purpose or the interest in this case is really not about how much money was taken or why this guy did it. This happened to a man that came into our community to help us. I think that's what we have to remember, that it doesn't matter to me if it was 1,000 or 5,000. What matters is that a person who came to help us was victimized, and it's just not right. It's just not right. And we're really I'm really going to advocate to have this guy held accountable on this. This is just unacceptable, and it's not a good representation of who we are and what our county's about. Any other questions? Okay, now we're going to transition to another subject, and I'm going to ask Chief Deputy Chris Quark to come up here and talk to you about that. If that leads to some questions, either Chief Deputy Quark or myself can answer those questions. Chris, want to come on up?
Well, I've got some good news. So, difficult times, and a lot of people displaced, and a lot of people wanting to go back home. And so today marks really the first step in getting folks back to a sense of normalcy after being displaced by the fire. And so I'm happy to announce that as of now, the city of Scotts Valley, as well as the unincorporated area of Scotts Valley, is going to be repopulated. People can go back home. And so I want to give you some zones, and then I'm going to give you some tips on some things to think about and keep in mind as you're coming back home. So I want to make sure that everybody understands the zones. I've talked about that before, and just being able to understand where you are within that zone, and again, going to our Facebook page and then CAL FIRE's incident fact sheet to get to the map to determine what zone you're in, and then that zone will turn from red to green. And so today that's exactly what's going to happen for the city of Scotts Valley and the unincorporated area that lies to the north and to the south, from Paradise Park, Cave Gulch area, going all the way north to Redwood Estates. So in terms of the zones, it's SC01 to 5, that's SCO1 to 5, SCO7, SCO14 to 25, and then that's within the city of Scotts Valley, and then the unincorporated areas of Scotts Valley, which are zones CRZ 18B, CRZ 19, and CRZ 20, and then Paradise Park, as I mentioned, which falls into CRZ 63, and then the Cave Gulch area of CRZ 9A. So in terms of, you're coming back home, and again, I've said this before, we want to make sure you get home safely, and so a little earlier the roadblocks were removed. You're going to be able to come back in, and so some things to keep in mind. For one, is be vigilant. You know, when you come home, we want you to keep an eye out for people that you may not recognize. You know, you get back to your neighborhood, you know who should be there and who shouldn't. If you see somebody that you don't recognize, give us a call, and we'll come out and we'll ask them, and we'll contact them, ask them what they're doing there. And so we'd encourage that. I also mentioned that we're not going anywhere, so we want to make sure that people get back to their houses, and that if there is any problems, we're there to help. And so in terms of, so you get back home, I'd also encourage you to continue to monitor CAL FIRE's website as well as our Facebook page. And that's important because, for one, it's trusted sources of information, as well as you just never know what's going to happen with a fire. So, I mean, right now, CAL FIRE feels very confident that there's not a threat to the city of Scotts Valley and the unincorporated area that lies, again, to the north and south. and that's why those orders are being lifted. But nonetheless, it's good practice to keep those sites and monitor them for anything that changes. Also, our base camp here for the fire isn't going to change, so just be mindful. There's going to be a lot of emergency traffic, a lot of emergency vehicles coming and going. So you'll see that around, and so just be mindful of that. And then the last thing I just want to touch on is that it's this repopulate, this coming back home for the city of Scotts Valley and those unincorporated areas that surround it. It's for residents, and so we just want to keep in mind that if you're not a resident of Scotts Valley, if you're not a resident of the unincorporated area in and around Scotts Valley, to give this area a break and to let these people come home. It just especially right now, it provides it. If you don't have business here, it's only going to create more congestion on the roads, and so we want to get folks home. So that's the mission now, at least as we stand today with Scotts Valley. And in terms of repopulating other areas, we've gotten a lot of questions about what's to come, and really that's where I think you're going to start seeing more positive news there as the days go on. Tomorrow there'll likely be another update, and then another update after that, and that's kind of how this is going to go along till we get to areas that are more heavily impacted by the fire. And really, the thing about those areas is that there's a lot of work to be done. And so, roads, water, electricity, all those things have to be fixed in a lot of the heavily burnt areas in Boulder Creek and Bonnie Doon. So I just ask residents in those areas, we feel for you. We want to get you home too, and nobody's forgotten about you. There's a lot of people out there working to repair all that, to get you back home. It just may take a little longer as you go towards those areas that are more impacted. So again, good news for the city of Scotts Valley and the areas that kind of surround it, and there's more good news to come.
I just want to add something, Chris. And so I do want to add this, that we have upstaffed the unincorporated area around Scotts Valley as well as the city of Scotts Valley. If we find people that think they're going to beat the homeowners home to take their stuff, you're going to be stopped. If there's not a good reason why you're going to be in there, you're going to have some problems with local law enforcement. So stay out. If you don't live in those neighborhoods, you don't belong in there, stay out. Second thing is we're now shrinking our evacuated zone. So our evacuation zone, we're going to be moving the roadblock from Glen Canyon to the other side of Scotts Valley, on the other side of Lockhart Gulch, I believe, and then on Graham Hill up by Juvenile Hall. And then also we'll have a lot of people in the Felton, Ben Lomond, Boulder Creek area. So as we start opening things up, we'll be shrinking down the evacuation zone, keeping a lot of staff in there for the folks that have been heavily impacted by this fire to make sure that their homes and their possessions are safe while CAL FIRE works their way through this challenge and gets this fire under control. So Chris and I are happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Sheriff, since I got you up there, just a follow-up to the theft. What's the status with the other individual who stole the protective gear from the other firefighters?
So that's a city of Scotts Valley case. The Scotts Valley Police Department took that case. We've given them the Pepsi challenge. We solved this case in 2.5 days, so we expect them to do the same. So my undersheriff has been given Chief Walpole a hard time about that, saying you guys better get to work on this and get that case solved. I know they're actively working the case. I just haven't heard any outcome yet.
Regarding the rescue of that 73-year-old man, Chris, you mentioned all the man hours that were used to put into that rescue, and you've driven home the fact that people need to stay out and you keep diverting resources. That was a huge effort to rescue that man, and I'm sure it costs a lot. What's the chance that this person might be charged for that rescue effort?
Yeah, so the question is referring to the gentleman that drove his car up to Castle Rock a couple days ago and tried to hike down to his home in Boulder Creek. He was lost. We had to divert about 100+ hours of deputy sheriff and search and rescue time. CAL FIRE had to divert a helicopter off to flight him out for medical care because he was starting to decompensate. And so that man was issued a citation for being in an evacuation zone. And we're probably going to attach a cost to that and submit that with a report and see if the DA's office will be able to get any restitution to CAL FIRE or us for that, because that was really an unwarranted waste of person hours for him to do that. And that's what we're trying to avoid is we're locking these areas down for a reason. There's trees down, the roads are bad, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. People should not be hiking through the forest in really rugged terrain in extreme fire conditions to try to get to their house. And so exactly the worst case scenario happened. He was lost, he was dehydrated, he was exhausted, he needed help. And so a whole bunch of resources were diverted to help him out. So that's why we're encouraging people to stay out of these evacuation zones until it's safe and until we can efficiently and safely get these folks home. Any other questions?
Not to that extreme, Sheriff, but have you had any other cases like that of people like that trying to get back into their home and some issues?
The question is, have we had any other cases similar to that, or maybe not that extreme, but like that? Maybe Chief Clark can answer that.
No, to my knowledge, no. It's likely to have happened, but none that have caught our attention like that.
Clark, you have